MCS is a mess. MCS is broken. In order to install solar panels, you need to be MCS approved. At least that's what I was told, but I wanted to break the mold and rebel, but I've just sold out. I've become MCS approved. Let me tell you why. MCS stands for Micro Generation Certification Scheme. Very complicated. It's just another one of those government money-making schemes to punish installers who just want to do a good job and get on with their lives. At least that's what I thought. And I'm hoping to escape and not register. So why did I change my mind? And what was involved in the whole process? Let me tell you about my experience. Let's take a walk and I'll tell you the little story. So 2 years ago, I did the solar course, became qualified to install solar PV panels. The plan was to transition the business slowly into renewables. This is an install that we've just done, but the absolute headache of getting to the point where we can actually install these systems and connect them to the grid is almost beyond belief. And most of it is because of this MCS thing. What is MCS all about? Well, basically it's a scheme to kind of protect customers and make sure that solar installs are being done properly. But the problem is that MCS installers are throwing in some terrible quality installations. And so for me, becoming MCS approved, I felt like it was just a bit of a joke and it didn't mean anything. Why would I pay several £1000s and go through lots of hoops just to get approved for something that doesn't really mean anything? Well, that's what I thought. And so I was going to go down the route of, I'm going to rebel. I don't need to be MCS approved. I'm just going to do a great quality installation. My customers won't care whether I'm MCS approved or not. But there was a hiccup. In order to connect a system like this to the grid and for the customer to be paid for exporting energy, they need an MCS certificate. And that was when I got a bit stuck. This is a proud moment for us. This here is our MCS approval certificate. We are now approved contractors under the MCS scheme for solar. But it's kind of a little bit bittersweet. Let me tell you why. The MCS assessment process consisted of basically 5 hours in the office drilling through all of our paperwork. So it's stuff like insurances, qualifications, process, right? It's all about systems and process. MCS, completely different to the NIC, EIC, normal approved contractor process. They want to see your process of how you document the install, all the way through to things like, do you store materials? If so, where do you store them? Do you have an area separate for broken materials? That whole customer pack thing that you need to send, making sure that you're using MCS approved materials such as the rails that you're using, the panels that you're using, the inverters that you're using, they all need to be MCS approved. It's a whole headache. But you know what killed me? 5 hours in the office, 10 minutes on site. They didn't really care about the quality of the installation. It was a complete joke. And it's all calm in here. Oh yeah. Finally. Wayne, we're telling people about the MCS process. All right, if you had to sum it up in one sentence, what would you say? Intense. One word. Look at that. That is pretty. That is a good summary. Intense. Here is a typical MCS pack. Let me show you. This document, that document, that document. It's not just documents, it's hundreds of pages. I believe there is around 120 pages of documents and a schematic involved in producing each pack for the customer. That takes a lot of admin work. And you know what admin work means? More people in the office and more expense. And it's for that reason that Wayne said it's intense, because getting our heads around this amount of paperwork for one job, well, it's something that's quite new for us. So let me tell you the basic requirements for MCS. Obviously, somebody in the company needs to hold the solar installation qualification. For us, that was me, and that was BPEC. Actually, John and Lee have got the qualification as well, although John's waiting for his certificate to come through. And of course, you have to have all the other basic electrical qualifications. Then on top of that, you need to be registered with a insurance-backed warranty provider. And there are two options, it seems, for that, either HICE, H-I-E-S, or REC, R-E-C-C. In deciding which one to go with, I took advice from various different people, and unfortunately, I regret the choice that I made. We went with Heiss because it seemed like they provide the insurance automatically, whereas REC, you have to choose which provider you're going to go with, and you have to kind of organise the insurance yourself. So it felt like it was a bit more work for us going with REC. However, Tesla have just said that they require REC approval for installers of their Tesla Powerwalls, which now means that we can't install Tesla Powerwalls unless we're REC approved, and that involves a load more cost and a load more paperwork. Now the other thing that you need is what's called Equality Management System, or QMS. What the heck is that? It's basically a software, or you could do it yourself on Google Sheets or something like that. Like it's basically a system where you go through all the steps to produce your customer packs. You input all of the data around your installs, including your suppliers that you work with, making sure they have the correct insurances, making sure everything that you do complies with the MCS rules. And there are software platforms that enable you to do that and provide you a lot of the documentation that you need. For example, you need terms and conditions, you need customer contracts, you need supplier agreements with various suppliers, delivery agreements. There's a whole heap of paperwork that you need. You can get something called Easy MCS, which is basically a software platform online that gives you all of that stuff, and you input your customer, your company details and your customer details, and it helps you to create the customer packs. There's another one called Paperclip. Those seem to be the two main ones, and we went with Paperclip, which I regret. The guy who assessed us, when he turned up, he was like, "Which one did you go with?" And I said Paperclip, and instantly he was like, "Oh, you didn't go with Paperclip, did you?" They're so slow. Their customer service is so slow. They're slow to respond. They're slow to get updates. So for example, battery storage, we're trying to get approved as MCS for battery as well. They don't have any of the documentation on their portal yet, whereas apparently Easy MCS are very up to date and are hot on all the changes. Another regret I have is not going with Easy MCS but going with Paperclip, so I wanted to share that with you guys. And now the problem is we've already paid 500 quid for Paperclip or whatever. We're just going to have to stick with it until we've earned a bit more money back from all these solar jobs, and then maybe there'll be a bit of spare cash to transition over to Easy MCS instead. But at the moment, we're trying to save on all of these software costs because they just keep racking up. So one of the biggest jokes that we found with MCS is the conflicting information that we've had between the MCS scheme, the NIC, EIC guidelines, the IET guidelines, and manufacturer's instructions. A classic example is like this setup here. You've got solar edge inverters, right? So normally in a solar PV system, you have an inverter, you would need a DC isolator that isolates the DC cables before they go into the inverter. That means that you can turn the isolator off and safely change the inverter later. However, SolarEdge is different. It's a very safe system, and it means no external DC isolators are needed. Well, that's what the manufacturer's instructions say. However, MCS rules state you must have a DC isolator. So we had conflicting information. MCS telling us to do one thing, manufacturer's instructions telling us to do something else, and it's only just getting ironed out. I think finally they've all agreed that DC isolator is not needed in this particular case with SolarEdge, but it's just a headache and it creates confusion for installers. Something needs to change. So one of the things we got picked up on our MCS assessment visit on the 10 minutes that he was on site for was labelling. Labelling is very important. So all of these lovely labels, pretty ugly to be honest, but they need to be there for safety reasons. So PV labels for the PV cables to say danger DC power, DC isolator labels, PV cables labels to say that they'll be live during the daylight. Identification, this is a nice little touch that we've done between the positive and negative on the DC string cables. Battery labels, solar on roof labels in the meter box. All of these labels are important, and if you don't put them on your install, you don't qualify for MCS apparently. So something to bear in mind. Now at this point I want to give a massive shout out to the people who helped us through this process, because we couldn't have done it without them, namely Sam from Oval Renewables and Josh from Inspire Green, also Mark Allison who runs Apprentice 1-to-1, but he's also got his own renewables company. Those guys were invaluable in giving me some advice about getting set up, so I really appreciate it, thank you. And there's a couple of tips that they shared with me that I'm going to share with you now. So one of them is EasyPV. Now EasyPV is a free piece of software that you can access online. It's Midsummer Energy's tool that they created to help you plan jobs and order materials. It's a brilliant tool and it can help you do a lot of the MCS calculations that are required. It's completely free, so definitely check that out. Another thing that I got shared that I didn't realize about, and this was from Josh from Inspire Green, is that there are 2 MCSs when it comes to solar and battery storage. They're not one. So you could get solar MCS approval and you get battery only MCS approval. If you want to be able to issue MCS certificates for installs when you only are fitting batteries but no solar, you need to go down the battery only route as well. So it's a second technology which you need to pay more to MCS for, and you need to have the BPEC battery storage qualification in order to get that. Our battery only MCS is still pending. We've done the course, but we're waiting for our certificates to come through for that course, and until we can show those to the NIC EIC, we won't get our battery technology approved. But it just means that you can fit battery only systems that people can use to do buying and selling energy at cheap times and exporting it to the grid, etc. without solar. Imagine they don't have a suitable roof for solar. You can still issue an MCS certificate, which means that they can get that export tariff even though they don't have solar. So it's an important thing to note. Now, the final thing I wanted to say to you guys is that I have not filled in everything about MCS on this video. There is so much to consider, so let me know in the comments if I've missed anything. And one interesting thing is that the MCS scheme is being reviewed right now, which means that there are some positive changes that might be in the pipeline. And just as I was about to post this video live, I have an urgent update. MCS is dead. Octopus have just announced that they no longer require an MCS certificate to give customers the smart export guarantee. They will accept a customer declaration that they believe the installation has been installed by a competent person to all of the necessary regulations, etc. Octopus accepts no liability for any loss, damage or injury resulting from the installation. However, it does mean that if you have solar but you don't have an MCS certificate, you can now get the smart export guarantee still. For me, that is another nail in the coffin of MCS as we know it, and it pains me because all of the effort that we've gone to get MCS approved, and it feels like we did it right at the wrong time, just before it all fell apart. But only time will tell. So stay tuned, check the links below for more information, and we'll see you on the next one.